Hi, my name is Ann Oro, and I teach at a small Catholic school in Cranford, New Jersey. I'm a computer teacher, but I've also taught math class to middle school students along the way. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about ways that I've found to connect myself and my students to global learning projects. When I had started as a computer teacher, it was mostly a class where we were learning the tools. We were learning to do word processing, draw pictures, that kind of thing. And as I went on to teach middle school math, I knew that I wanted to do more with my students. I wanted to give them a chance to create things, to learn better. I wanted them to collaborate with each other in the classroom and outside of the classroom. But I wasn't quite sure how to do that. When I was transitioning to adding middle school math classes to my day, I knew that I didn't want to just be working with straight math. I wanted to make sure that my students had a chance to communicate with each others and people outside the classroom. I wanted them to create things that would help them understand the material better. I really wanted to explore more than just multiplying, doing decimals, and I began to search on the internet. As I was searching, one of the things that I came across was a wiki, and it was perfect. He was teaching the same middle school math that I was to the same grade level, and I was watching how he was having students explore concepts, share their answers with each other, communicate, and it was leaving a footprint behind of that student learning. I didn't know how to do it, and since he seemed to be doing it really well, I thought it would be worth trying to connect with him. And he had an email address on the screen. That night, when I got back and looked at email, it really changed the way that I operated in my middle school math class and my computer class up until today. What he explained to me was that there are groups of teachers that record podcasts, and you could listen to them after the fact, or you could join in during the production and chat on the side. So I started investigating these podcasts. I began chatting with the teachers on the side a little bit. I didn't feel too comfortable with it. And as time grew, I got to know these teachers over the course of the summertime. At that time also, a new website was starting up called Twitter, and they asked if I'd like to join and we can connect online through that tool. Well, all of that really led to where I am today. What I do now is I teach computer class, but it really is using all the ISTE standards. ISTE is the International Society for Teachers of Computing, and we're out to make sure that students are collaborating, communicating, using critical thinking skills, and using their creativity to learn deeper and better. When I was in the middle school math class, I always wanted to make sure that every project really began with student learning. And one of the best examples that I can give you started out as a project I was just going to do in class. The students were having a little trouble understanding metric weight, and I had a digital scale in the house. So I brought it to school, and initially I was just going to have them weigh things and take photographs of the things on the scales, maybe post the pictures online to the wiki and answer some questions. And one of the things that I find as an educator who's connected online is I end up with a lot of little serendipitous events. Serendipity is a happy accident. And what happened that day was I went back home, I kind of sent a little message out that I was working on this project, and another teacher from Canada hopped online and said that he was very interested in collaborating with another classroom. He had worked on a wiki himself the year before, and he wanted to take it a little further. It ended up being an amazing project. We used a little online piece of software called VoiceThread. It allows you to put pictures up on the screen, and then you can leave a prompt and the students can answer the prompt. What we did was his class was working on mental math strategies. Mine was working on the metric system. And we had our students review each other's work, and they had an amazing time because they were taking what they put out there and getting feedback from real students. And it was a very exciting time for everybody. We used Skype, we had the students meet each other. And that was just a one-time project. It was something that we just did that one time. He moved on to other things, I moved on to other things, but it was a great collaboration for our students. Another time that I ended up with, again, a very little serendipitous project was I saw a teacher posting that she had a project where her students drew little monsters and used adjectives to describe them, and she was looking to see if there was another second grade classroom out there who would like to take those descriptions and try to draw the pictures for her students so they could compare how well they described with their adjectives what they had drawn. We began working together, and this collaboration has gone on now for 5 years. There's a lot of variations of this project out on the internet, and with our project we've communicated and collaborated with students in the United States, as far away as China at an international school. We've had people from Canada join us on the project. And it is the most immersive project for a second grader because what they're doing is they're doing something they love anyway. They love drawing. Many students really just enjoy monsters. And so every December, we'll ask people who've done this with us before, are you interested again? We match teachers up based on class size. And it's a pretty independent project. Each teacher has their student draw the monsters. They talk about adjectives. They do a lot of writing. They write descriptions of all these monsters. And then the teachers post just the description on a wiki. The students each get a partner's drawing to try to redraw based on the description, and then all the monsters, all the redrawn pictures, and all the descriptions are posted up on the wiki. It gives the students a chance to really experience what it means to be very descriptive, and a lot of times the teachers who partner up choose to Skype with each other, and they get a chance to meet another culture, meet somebody from a different part of the country or a different part of the world. And it's a project that I look forward to doing every year. Another project that I ran into, again, another serendipitous moment, was a teacher was interested in exploring how we could use Twitter to write a story. And I believe that time there were about 12 classrooms who got involved. And each teacher just put it out to the students. This is what we're going to give a shot. We're going to give this a try. Would you like to contribute 140 characters to this story? And it began with a teacher out in, I believe it was China, and the story went down to a teacher out in Australia, and then it passed on to a teacher up in Canada and over to the United States through a bunch of teachers. It was an amazing project because the students never knew quite where it was going. It was just every student contributed a little bit of a thought. And at the end, the teacher who started the project used a website called Lulu, published it as a book, and the students could choose to purchase the book. I purchased a couple copies because it was only 6 students, I believe, who participated from our school. But it was a tangible item they could hold in their hand. They could show their families and their classmates, this is what I contributed. And there was a lot of excitement involved. And I think what you'll find is as you begin to experience these kind of collaborations with your students, you begin to develop a system of teachers that you trust and rely on. So one of the things that I'd like to leave you with as a thought is that when you begin to connect with other teachers, it's just like anything else. You'll begin to find people that you're just comfortable with working. And you may not do the same project year on year, but you'll be teaching something else and you'll say, well, I'm working on digital citizenship. How do you think we could collaborate with this? And you'll begin to get a toolbox of tools that you could work with. I've worked with maybe 15 or 20 different tools, and so I'll know I might want to use one particular tool like Edmodo to allow students to talk with each other and have more of a protected environment. Or sometimes we'll work in video and I'll use different websites to put that video out on the internet. But it's so nice to have a teacher come up to me and say, we're studying a particular item, what do you think we could do? And know off the top of my head, teachers in different continents, teachers in different countries, teachers in different states that I can reach out to, and I know their style of teaching. We worked with each other before, and things can happen pretty quickly to come out with a project that really supports that student learning and gives them that opportunity to create and collaborate with others. I've always been very lucky at my school. When I began working on these collaborations, I was very careful to keep all student names off of the projects. I really stuck to audio because, again, it keeps it more private for the students. And I began to, of course, show the principal in the building, this is what we're doing. I was very lucky. My principal was always very supportive. And what I try to do as well is I try as the computer teacher, in addition to teaching the students, I teach the teachers. So as we began doing projects, I would show the teachers, this is what your students are doing with me. Would you like to try something like that? Or when we have Skype calls with others, what I'll do is I'll tell the classroom teacher, this is what I'm going to be doing with your students. Would you like to come in and be an observer? And as time has passed, not only have I been doing projects like this, but others too, other teachers have been beginning to bring these types of projects into their class. They're still keeping it local, which is okay because it takes time to build up your comfort level. But we've had teachers who will Skype with the class of a sibling. I had last year one teacher who her sister taught in another school in the state, and they'd have their classes Skype together. I've had teachers, many teachers, who've learned about webinars, and they'll set up webinars for their students, and they'll have the students take part in webinars. And it kind of leads to the question, why does somebody do this? Why do you take the time in your day to bring others into your classroom? And one of the things that I'll tell you is that I didn't start my life as a teacher. I began my life as an adult computer trainer, let's put it that way, in a very large shipping company called Sealand. And one of our projects was to make training programs in multiple languages. And when I was doing that, I started thinking about, if I was a teacher, I would want my students to know what it was like in different countries and to start thinking about the implications of when they grow up. They're probably not going to be working with people who are just in their neighborhood or just in their state. They're naturally going to have to be talking to people in Australia and Ireland and Canada. And I want my students to begin to think about the bigger picture, that just because we spell color C-O-L-O-R, it doesn't mean that it's wrong if somebody spells it C-O-L-O-U-R. It's just a difference in the way that our world works. It's important for me to help the students understand that if we're collaborating with somebody in Australia and we want to talk to them, well, either they're going to have to stay after school or we're going to have to stay after school because our time zones are so different. One year we did a project where we learned about geocaching. It's kind of like a global hide and seek with a device where coordinates are logged in on a website and you can find your way to these little hidden treasures. And we decided, myself and another teacher, to try to get a little treasure to move from New Jersey to Australia. and from Australia to New Jersey. And it was an 8th grade class, and they were very excited about the project, and they wanted to meet these children. Now, this was my 8th grade class working with a group of 1st graders. And the teacher at first was a little shy about it. She says, well, are your students going to be able to understand these are little kids? And I said, at our school, our older kids always buddy up with the little kids, so it would be fine. I sent out permission slips to the parents. It was a volunteer effort. If you felt like coming in at 7 p.m., you could come in and take part in this. Some of the parents came in to watch it happen. And it was absolutely priceless seeing the students talking across the time zones, understanding that here were a group of 1st graders who were at their 10 a.m. recess break, and here we were at 7 p.m. at night back at the school. So the benefit to your students is just multi-layered, from understanding the differences in cultures to understanding the differences in time zones, and to be putting work out there that the whole world can see and benefit from. I'll end with another reason that you might want to consider working globally with your students, and it comes in the form of a social studies project. I had heard that there's a thing called a mystery Skype, and you collaborate with a teacher in advance, someplace else in the world, and you give all the students jobs. And it's really nice when you can set up a project like this. I had a student who was reporting on what was going on, taking photographs, asking questions, looking in encyclopedias, using Google Earth. And you start at the Skype call, nobody knows where they're from, and they begin asking each other clues. It's almost like 20 questions. Do you live in the northern hemisphere? Do you live in the southern hemisphere? And again, it used all the skills that this was a 5th grade class we're learning in social studies. You know, how do you use an atlas? How can Google Earth help you? And they actually narrowed down the other class to the exact building and the exact address just by getting closer and closer from, you know, we know you're in the United States, we know you're in the Pacific Coast, we know you're in California, and they were so excited that they found each other's school. So I strongly encourage you that when you're working with students, think about what content it is that you're working on, and think about what could your students create, how might you be able to collaborate, what do you want them to be thinking about, and how can they best communicate that message. You might find that these projects will lead you and your students to places that you never could have imagined going before.